Hey gang, StatKing here for another episode of Dark Powerrr. This week there was no actual new episode of NWA Power. They had an episode of Circle Squared, but there was a full episode of AEW Dark. Before we jump into it, guys, this week we got a lot of news about the coronavirus, and I just want you guys to remember to wash your hands, try to keep a distance between people, do the best you can to stay safe, avoid large crowds, big areas. There's a lot about this disease we don't know. We do know that because of it, we're shutting down. SmackDown is going to be at the Performance Center. We don't know the full status yet, really, of WrestleMania. They said that they're leaving the decision in Vince McMahon's hands, but if Vince doesn't do anything, or if Vince is just saying like it's going to fly, then they may still step in a week from now. We know that I think AEW's next episode has been postponed. I'm not 100% sure. I know that there's some issues with whatever the current plan is when it comes to Blood and Guts. The NHL suspended operations, the NBA suspended operations. Duke pulled out of March Madness, and then the NCAA completely shut down the tournament. Originally, it was just going to be very close family and staff in relatively empty arenas. So we are the global wrestling community. We are global, right? And we care about each other because we all have this amazing thing in common, and we want to be able to keep sharing this amazing thing. So the more safe we are, I mean, if you want to look at it from a selfish standpoint, the safer you are, the faster you get back 100% wrestling. But anyway, let's jump into things that are a little bit more upbeat. And with that, we're going to talk about NWA's next episode of Circle Squared. So this week on Circle Squared, they have Colby Corino versus a legend in the form of George South, and they have another episode with Freya the Slayer versus Danny Jordan. So what I liked about the presentation of Circle Squared is, as I said the last time there was a Circle Squared episode, they have people watching it real time, kind of giving you their opinions. And what was good about it before was that it was just people from What Culture or BR Live or different wrestling reviewers and websites and things like that. But this week, or this episode, they had Allison Kay watching in her home or apartment or hotel room if she was traveling for a show, and they had Eli Drake. And what was kind of cool is that they were giving their take on what they would be doing had they been in the position of the people who were watching. And that was kind of cool, to see like what an established person or what a veteran person would want to do in that scenario, right? So what I think was kind of cool was, at least for me personally, was things that I was saying in my head were things that later Eli Drake or Allison Kay said out loud about what we were watching. So it was good to know that I was not alone, and on top of that, people who are in the business and kind of have to do these things were saying they should have done it like that, they should have done it like this. So anyway, Colby Corino comes out, cuts a really strong babyface promo about how he is doing this not just for his family name, but for his children at home, his baby who he wants to take care of and wants to have look up to him. George South comes out, cuts a relatively strong heel promo about how he knows Colby Corino very well, and he was the one who Steve Corino gave Colby to when Colby was a little baby when he had to go face Dusty Rhodes. So the only thing I don't like about the promo and George South's actions in the ring is that he relied on basically yelling at the audience a bit too much. It's funny because Allison liked the fact that he kept the same tone, whereas Eli Drake wanted the voice to go up and down and just to have more of an inflection to it. And it's dealer's choice, but South seemed to keep just basically telling the crowd to shut up, both during the promo and during the match. The match itself was fairly straightforward. I kind of suspected that Carino was going to win. What I liked about the match was that they kind of got over the fact that Carino is the younger guy, which, I mean, it's fairly obvious, but there were ways that they did it that, if you're not looking for it, it's not readily apparent. So doing things like that clutch over and over and over again. The third time he put the clutch on, I'm sitting here watching and I'm thinking, can South does he have a problem with mobility at this point? Because he's not really moving around the ring. He's not, bouncing off the ropes as much. He's not doing this, that, and the other thing. Most of the time he's using Kobe's either speed or momentum to move Kobe on his own, or there's a situation where Kobe puts him in an abdominal stretch, and then he does a quick counter to get out of it, and then puts Kobe right back into that clutch. Now, Eli Drake pointed out, you stick with what works, which from a realism standpoint definitely makes sense, but I'm looking at it from a realism standpoint and a behind-the-scenes standpoint, and to me it just looks like South can't really move that well anymore, and they were trying to either hide that fact or use that as part of the match, right? You have the larger South, the older veteran, kind of holding down the young guy trying to come up, quite literally. And Kobe Carino has to find a way to overcome that. So, good match for Kobe Carino. I think he will probably more than likely be the one getting the contract. I think that's kind of a given at this point. I don't think that the NWA in 2020 is going to be trying to get George South into their ranks. I could be wrong. I mean, they got Rock and Roll Express there. Granted, Rock and Roll Express, in comparison, are like Mustafa Ali to Goldberg, but or no, Mustafa Ali to Scott Steiner. But anyway, in between the episodes, they give an update on the Crockett Cup. They go over the world title match, Aldous Girl, that we already know. But what we do know now is that Aaron Stevens will be defending the third degree National Heavyweight Championship against Trevor Murdoch. We also find out that Thunder Rosa will be defending the title. We don't know who yet, but we will be finding out shortly over the course of the next few weeks before the Crockett Cup. And we find out that 4 teams are announced for the Crockett Cup itself. The Rock and Roll Express, who, as Joe Galli points out, have never made it past the first round. We will see Brody King teaming up with Flip Gordon, 2 members of Villain Enterprises. We will see Ray Horace versus Flamita. Flamita is going to be coming over from Ring of Honor. It's another Ring of Honor person coming in, kind of cementing that relationship, or that they're working together. And we'll have the wild cards of Strictly Business, Lattimore and Isaacs. Now, one thing that they do say is that there will be 3 other teams that are announced, and the final team will be determined by a wild card battle royal. Now, what's interesting about this battle royal, and I kind of like it, is that you might be thinking, how is a battle royal going to be won by a tag team? Well, unlike WWE, which says that a tag team is eliminated if one person in the team is eliminated, either in a battle royale or in an elimination chamber match, which still involves no tagging. Both matches don't require any tagging. In this, it's every man for himself. However, the final 2 will be put in a team together and will enter the Crockett Cup. Now that's really interesting because, as even Joe Galli pointed out, if you are in an established team, you then need to not just be worried about winning for yourself, but you have to keep your partner in the match as well. Because if you don't, then you could be forced to tag with somebody else who you don't know very well, you don't have chemistry with, and you don't go far in the tournament, right? So it's an interesting twist on the tale. I kind of liked that aspect of it. And then they moved to episode 3 of Circle Squared. Episode 3 of Circle Squared is a women's match. It is Freya the Slayer versus Danny Jordan. Now, I knew kind of what was happening because I could not watch this live. With my travel times now, with my job in downtown Chicago, and with the way that the show starts at 6:05 Eastern time. So for me, that's 5:05 p.m. I'm usually still in the office. I have to watch these a little bit later. And so because of that, sometimes I see news or things, pop up on my timeline and on my news feeds. But I knew what Freya the Slayer's name was. The crowd clearly did not, because as Allison Kay and Eli Drake both pointed out, she did not actually introduce herself. Now, Danny Jordan came out, and Danny Jordan had her name on her shirt, which, I mean, if you have merch, or if you already have merch, or you are going with that kind of character who might have their name on their shirt, then you're kind of covered. Freya the Slayer, who is from the uncharted territory that is Alaska, which I think is very well mapped out. You might have to talk to Sarah Palin about that. That's a 12-year-old joke or reference for you guys right there. But it's a known place. But anyway, she is from the great state of Alaska, the Great White North. And she says that because it's so cold, or because it's harsh living, she is well suited for a wrestling ring. That's great, but there was nothing on your outfit or your gear that identified you as Freya, right? So nobody knew your name. But anyway, Danny actually saved her. The heel came out, Danny Jordan, who is working kind of like a mean girl gimmick. She saved her in the sense that she was like, hey, what did you say your name was? Freya, that's right. And then she has that burn book that the plastics, right? Yeah, I think it was the Plastics. What's the name of the group in Mean Girls, which I made a 12-year-old reference. That movie, I think, came out 2004 or 2005. So that's a between 15 and 16-year-old reference with that character. So, hey, dude, it's an interesting thing to be kind of doing in wrestling today, when you have people trying to be fresh and current and ahead of the trends and creating the trends, if you will, or creating new personas and new characters off of what we see in this day and age. Anyway, the match itself is really good in the sense that it flips the normal dynamic, something that Allison Kay kind of talks about. Danny Jordan is tiny, and I mean she is tiny. Like, if she's having a who is smaller off with Alexa Bliss, I could see Danny Jordan winning. That's how small this girl is. But whereas Freya is much, much larger. I think she actually is just taller and larger, but I think also, I mean, in appearance, yes, she is, but then also I think she just is as a matter of course. So you have your David and Goliath dynamic, right? But in this situation, they've already positioned your Goliath as the face of the match. So the match goes off, good match. Nothing really complaints here. No complaints here about the match, but I just like that change in dynamic. I like that the person you would expect to be the heel is the face. The person you expect to be the face is the heel when you're looking at it at first glance. If you hadn't seen the promos before and you didn't know anything about these two people, you're expecting Freya to be the heel because she's larger, but she's not. And so she has to kind of be able to move around and fight off a heel who not only is using cheap tactics or trying to use cheap tactics, but is also much faster than her. So that was really a nice twist on the tail, so to speak. And episode 3 of Circle Squared was overall really good. Moving onwards now to AEW Dark. Now, this episode of Dark does set up some great things for the very next day's episode of Dynamite. This has Kip Sabian and Peter Avalon versus the Jurassic Express. It has Jimmy Havoc versus Severino, and who is a new debuting talent. It has Abaddon, who is also a new debuting talent, versus Hikaru Shida, and it has Private Party versus Brandon Cutler and Sonny Kiss. So, they start off hot with the Sabian Avalon versus Jurassic Express match. I really enjoy Jurassic Express matches. I've praised them multiple times on the show. I don't need to praise them much more. I don't think You, my loyal listeners, know very well how much I like Jurassic Express. However, I will say that they know their characters very well. That's something that's new that I haven't touched on as much. They know their roles and they know what they're supposed to be doing at all times. And that is very underrated. Especially when you consider the fact of what's going to happen the next night when they're in that match that they have. They need to know their roles, and they're showing that on Dark. They show through their progression that they know what they're doing in the ring, and they know who they are. It's not just being able to pull off moves. It's what am I doing in this match at this moment to get the best effects that I can for the crowd. And they have that nailed down. I think that they are definitely future tag team champions. I think that once the titles are moved off of the Elite, or out of the Elite overall storyline, that Jurassic Express is going to be knee deep in whatever that feud is over the rest of the year. Now here we have Havoc facing a talent that going into this match, Havoc's going to win, and the match kind of plays out that way. The opponent rarely has too much of an advantage over Jimmy, and really the match is not about the possibility of Jimmy losing. It's how much hurt can Jimmy take, which was kind of weird because I didn't feel as though Jimmy was in danger of losing, right? I was kind of waiting for when is the shoe going to drop with Luther. And that shoe drops after the match. Luther sneak attacks, Jimmy Havoc beats him up, and I think that where they're going to go with this could be some kind of death match stipulation down the road, a hardcore match. Maybe it's going to be that next Lights Out match. I think I've talked about that last week. But I'm kind of interested to see how they build this story because we haven't heard a promo from Luther, really. We haven't heard him talk. He does the, like the thing to his head, like he points at the eye. He does the tongue thing, but we don't really know what is his reason, right? We don't know why he wants to fight Jimmy. We don't know why he wants to hurt Jimmy. And it's hard to get invested in a storyline, or harder to get invested into a storyline when you don't know the reason why the bad guy wants to beat up the babyface. But it's a great start. It's a great final start to kick off the feud. They've been teasing it. They've been having confrontations, but now we actually have something we can start to sink our teeth into. Next, we have Harshita versus Abaddon. I'm going to start by saying Abaddon might do one of the best jobs I have seen portraying somebody fucking unhinged. This girl is off her rocker, and it's absolutely amazing. It does take away from that real, authentic feel that AEW is supposed to have, or that they touted over the kind of gimmicked characters of WWE and other companies, but mainly WWE. But it is nice, it is refreshing in that sense that you can have that one or two people who fit that mold. Because, if we are following kayfabe, is Luchasaurus really a dinosaur? I don't know. Is he 65 plus 1 million years old? He says he is. But, I don't know. Is Abaddon batshit insane? Yes. No, that's a yes. Whether it's kayfabe or not, that girl's crazy. She does the Undertaker sit-up. She does the Bray Wyatt spider walk, or spider pop-up thing very well. The face paint, the contacts, the blood on the tongue. She licks Harshita's face. Sheeta gets to pull the old hair braid out, or the ponytail, or whatever she has in that keeps that the hair in and shows. She lets loose the bang. It's going crazy. My a couple months ago, my girlfriend started doing a bang, and so Harshita always interests her because she's just how is she seeing with how deep it's a deep bang, right? It's covering half of her face. How is she able to see in the ring, right? Just not from both a realism aspect of it's supposed to be a fight, but also from a kayfabe or non-kayfabe aspect of how is she literally able to see some of the moves that she has to do if her vision is partially obscured. So Harshita lets the hair loose instead of putting the hair up and square up. She is letting the hair loose, and she is going ham on Abaddon. She finally puts Abaddon away, picks up the win, but a great match, followed by Jimmy Havoc backstage. He is getting ready to do an interview, and Luther attacks him again. So they are building upon it. We're getting more and more of those steps. But our main event is Private Party versus Brandon Cutler and Sonny Kiss. So last week it was Private Party, Brandon Cutler, and Shawn Spears. And now we are seeing, Avalon, I think it was. It was Avalon, because Avalon abandoned him, because Shawn Spears abandoned his partner. The two abandonments I'm losing it. But Cutler was abandoned against Private Party, and he held his own for a good bit of time before he succumbed to the numbers game. The question is now, with a dedicated tag team partner in the form of Sonny Kiss, will they be successful? Now, the answer is no, but what's good about it is it's a storyline, right? They're building a storyline that started last week. And if I remember right, it really was with Shawn Spears. I could be wrong, but if it's with Shawn Spears, then that's also including part of the storyline of getting Shawn Spears a tag team partner, right? So they're starting to do stories or angles, programs on Dark that are contained on Dark, that are enhancing the overall production value of Dark. It's raising these matches above just Dark matches, because that's really all they are. And what they are is a way to help the person watching on Tuesday get ready for what's coming on Wednesday, right? And now you're building storylines within Dark itself while still getting over whatever the matches are that are coming the next day. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that after Private Party wins this match, they get attacked by the Death Triangle. Death Triangle being Pac and the Lucha Bros. Pac and the Lucha Bros are going after Death Triangle, and they're not going after Death Triangle, they're going after Private Party, and who comes out to save them but Joey Janela? Now, the very next night, it's taped a week prior, but the very next night on Dynamite, we're going to have a trios match. Private Party, Joey Janela versus Death Triangle. So they use the storyline of Brandon Cutler holding his own ish against Private Party and trying to get a tag team partner so he can actually see if he can beat Private Party, to also get over Death Triangle and put over a match that's going to be happening the next day. That's smart booking. That's planning in advance. And I'm really excited to see that, because what that means is that when Dark becomes an actual show televised on TNT, this quality is going to be there. And we're going to have two shows of equal quality that are complementing each other in a very, very great way. But that's all the time we have today. Again, ladies and gentlemen, please stay safe when it comes to the coronavirus. For the sake of your loved ones, for the sake of all of us, because if you get sick, you don't know who you may pass the illness on to before you're able to either quarantine or be hospitalized or whatever the case may be. And you don't want to get somebody else sick who may have immunocompromised or maybe elderly and they die because of it, right? We don't want that to happen. But we will see you here next week to recap another episode of AEW Dark and NWA Powerrr, which will be back as we move towards the Crockett Cup. Hopefully the Crockett Cup is still around, but by the time April, middle of April rolls around, Lord willing. But we will see you guys next week. Stay safe, everybody. Thanks for watching.